Hello, you are on Ruslan Belov's channel. Well, the meeting in Washington is over, and it ended just as we expected. That is, Zelensky rejected absolutely everything that Putin had proposed in Alaska. No withdrawal of troops from the Donetsk region. He demands that the $300 billion of frozen assets be transferred to Ukraine. No demilitarization. On the contrary, he talks about militarization and so on. At the same time, Trump called Putin, and according to Agence France Presse, Putin agreed to a personal meeting with Zelensky. Honestly, I don't believe it. I will only believe it when Putin himself says so. Because I don't understand. What's the point? Why go? Why meet? Zelensky rejected absolutely everything that was proposed, so what is there to talk about? The fighting continues, and we continue with you to study the situation on the front. And, as usual, I want to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. If you are watching my videos not for the first time and are not yet subscribed, please do so. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thanks to everyone who has subscribed. So friends, the political news is rather disturbing, but there is very good and important news from the front. In the past 24 hours, more than 30 square kilometers have come under Russian control. There have been advances, including in the Dobropillya sector. You see, we've recently grown used to the fact that the AFU advanced there, that it's very difficult, that Russian forces have to hold them back against heavy assaults. But now they managed, the defense held, and now the Russian side is attacking and most importantly succeeding. They've even advanced. But let's go step by step. We'll start with the most important success, which took place, you won't believe it, on the Siversk sector. Thanks to the recent advance here, where the Russian army took control of the village of Serebryanka, Russian forces managed to push significantly deeper into the cursed Kremenets forest. This was expected, we spoke about it, that thanks to success here, the Russian army would inevitably improve its positions in the forest. But I didn't expect it to happen so quickly and on such a scale. I thought the advance would be 1 kilometer, maybe 500 meters. But in reality, the entire area that came under Russian control is 31.5 square kilometers. That is an enormous gain. On this sector, no one has ever advanced like this before. To the south, the advance in the forest was 7 kilometers, to the north, 5 kilometers. If you look at the Ukrainian map, they didn't mark it, they simply covered it up. And you have to understand, the Kremenets forest is the toughest sector of the entire front, without exaggeration. The fighting here has been going on for over 3 years. More than 3 years the Russian army has been battling for this cursed forest. The losses on both sides have been enormous. And finally, the Russian army is crushing this forest. Today's success is not just a step, it's a huge leap toward the end of the battle for the Kremenets, or as it's also called, the Serebryansky forest. About 30 square kilometers remain to be cleared, and then this dreadful place, which has become a giant graveyard, will be left behind, and Russian soldiers will have achieved victory. This area is the gateway to the main Ukrainian-held cities in Donetsk region, Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. The Ukrainian army has never spared resources here. They have some of their most capable forces deployed. But even they seem to have thinned out, and now Russian units are advancing much more easily. Once again, 31.5 square kilometers of advance. That's incredible. Now let's move to another difficult sector, Chasiv Yar. There was progress both to the west and to the south of the city. Let's start with the west. After the capture of Chasiv Yar itself, which was also a lengthy battle, though of course nothing compared to the fight for the Kremenets forest, it was natural that the movement westward would begin, especially considering that the village of Nikolaevka lies just 150 meters from the city limits. It is practically an extension of Chasiv Yar. Russian troops managed to advance 900 meters from Chasiv Yar, enter Nikolaevka, and take control of 3 streets, Krasnoznamenaya, Levonevskogo, and Oleg Koshevoy. The village is small, so I think the guys will soon be able to take full control of it. From there, following the railway line, one can potentially reach all the way to Kramatorsk. North of Chasiv Yar, there is parallel movement toward Verelyubovka, but no progress in the last day. However, to the south of Chasiv Yar, progress was significant. In the area of Stupochki and Predtichino, about 3 square kilometers came under Russian control in the last 24 hours. West of Stupochki, the entire area up to and beyond the Chasiv Yar Konstantinovka highway was cleared. The same happened near Predtichino, except that here Russian troops have not yet reached the road but are at the closest approaches. This advance is important for moving toward the outskirts of Konstantinovka because it broadens the zone of control, meaning the eventual entry will take place along a wider front. At the moment, Russian positions are only 2.15 kilometers away from the first houses of Konstantinovka. Very close, but no attempts to enter the city have been made yet, and probably rightly so. Clearly, Russian forces are not yet ready to storm such a large city. Elsewhere along the Konstantinovka direction, there is calm, no new reports. Now to the Dobropillya sector. Over the past day, Russian forces managed to stabilize the situation. Despite heavy assaults by Azov units, the Russian side did not retreat. The stories told by Ukrainian blogger Shari on August 17th about the entire salient being cut off turned out to be fiction. The Ukrainian army managed to take back only 2 villages. But in the past day, for the first time since Azov's push began, Russian forces not only repelled all attacks and held their ground, but even advanced on the eastern flank of Chasiv Yar by 1.2 km. The Ukrainian maps didn't mark it, but the American cartographers did. The numbers themselves aren't as important as the fact of the advance. It shows that Russian forces have fully stabilized the situation. Out of the 180 square kilometers of the Russian breakthrough, about 150 are still firmly held. Now the Russian army is not only defending, but also moving forward. So the conclusion is clear: Azov failed. They were sent here to completely eliminate the Russian breakthrough, to push the army back 18 kilometers to Novotoretskoye. But Russian troops are still in the area of Chasiv Yar, just 13 kilometers from Novotoretskoye, and it's now obvious the territory has been secured. They won't push them back significantly anymore. It is an outright failure for Azov. We have received exclusive footage from the front. Assault units of the Russian grouping sent us episodes showing the destruction of Azov's equipment during their attempted counter-offensive on the Krasnoarmysk sector. The 1st Corps of the National Guard Azov deployed tanks, armored vehicles with infantry, motorbike groups, and pickup trucks in their failed operation, but still broke their teeth against our defense. And what else from the front? Well, there was an amusing episode yesterday near Malaya Tokmachka, a village in the Zaporozhye region. A video came out showing Russian fighters capturing an American M113 APC, raising both American and Russian flags on it, and then attacking AFU positions with it. Can you imagine? Attacking Ukrainian positions on an American APC with an American flag. Just imagine their faces. Even Yermak was furious when he saw this footage. A pretty funny episode. Humor is good. It lifts the spirits of the guys at the front. Meanwhile, heavy fighting continues in Malaya Tokmachka itself. On the Pokrovsk direction, intense battles are ongoing in Udaknoye and Leontovichi, but without noticeable changes. Russian forces are increasing pressure in the areas of Chunishino and Lisovka. On the northern flank, the situation has stabilized overall, and a stable front line is being established. In Rodinskoye, heavy fighting continues in the northern part of the town. Russian assault units are also attempting to break through the AFU defenses from the southeastern outskirts. Meanwhile, Russian aerospace forces and rocket troops are turning the incoming Ukrainian forces into a complete wasteland. Well, that's all I have for today regarding the situation on the front. Now let's take a look at what is happening on the political stage. Today it became known that a Russian armed forces convoy was attacked in the Rilsk area. General Abachev was seriously wounded, according to Oleg Tsarev. The Russian aerospace forces carried out a comprehensive strike on military targets in several regions of Ukraine. In the Sumy region, a long-range drone launch site was neutralized. More than 100 UAVs were destroyed, and the AFU suffered losses. An Iskander missile struck one of the workshops of the Pavlograd mechanical plant. In Odessa, drones attacked a Nova Poshta terminal and also destroyed a terminal of the Azerbaijani oil company, Sokar. In several regions, AFU logistics and storage hubs were hit. The Zelensky-Trump meeting. Trump said it was very sad to look at the map of Ukraine right now. He declared that Ukraine would not be joining NATO. When discussing a potential territorial exchange between Russia and Ukraine, the current frontline contact line would be taken into account, the US president added. Trump called his talks with Zelensky successful, ahead of Zelensky's meeting with European leaders. We touched on many issues. I also indirectly spoke with Vladimir Putin, and I will speak with him again. Perhaps we will organize a trilateral meeting with Putin as part of Ukraine's security guarantees. And this is the main issue that needs to be discussed at the table. Who will be responsible for what? The US president told the Europeans. Trump also said he did not believe in the threat of further Russian escalation against Ukraine. Zelensky, for his part, said territorial issues would be discussed at the trilateral meeting. Trump stressed that the potential territorial exchange must be discussed. By the way, our sources have offered a plausible version of why the negotiation track might collapse, wrote the Telegram channel Legitimny. At some point, globalists may stage a coup against Zelensky in Ukraine, bring loyal military figures to power, and drag out the talks, or even eliminate him and blame it on the Kremlin. Resident also agrees that the British are working to delay the peace process. How this will play out in practice remains to be seen. For example, Zelensky wants to discuss the details of territorial swaps at the trilateral meeting. Why? Most likely to stall for time. Probably something is being prepared that requires time to implement. So far, everything looks too good to be true since there are no concrete details. We should wait for more information. Negotiations revolved around the configuration of how to cede territory, what, how, and by what method. Otherwise, there are still many uncertainties. It's possible Zelensky was pushing the idea of holding a referendum and demanding a 3-month truce in exchange. His behind-the-scenes promises don't rule out the possibility of provocations to derail all agreements. Zelensky is in a situation where any step could be fatal. On the one hand, pressure from Trump is increasing. He is demanding that Zelensky sign a comprehensive peace deal on terms that in practice amount to capitulation. On the other hand, refusal risks a break with Washington, the cutoff of aid, and diplomatic isolation. The peace plan announced after the Alaska summit involves real territorial concessions. Behind it stands Trump, who openly signals his readiness to accommodate Putin's demands and has already made it clear there will be no ceasefire, only a full agreement. For Zelensky, this is not just a foreign policy dead end, it's a challenge to his political power. Signing the agreement would mean lifting martial law, which in turn would mean calling elections. And in elections, Zelensky has no chance. But sabotaging the negotiations would mean losing US support. European allies, as practice shows, cannot replace American military and financial assistance. Zelensky's visit to Washington with European leaders today looks more like a symbolic show of support than a factor of pressure on Trump. Yes, Zelensky still has loyalists such as Rutte and Stubb, but even they won't be able to change the overall atmosphere. Decisions have already been made without Kyiv. Behind the mask of negotiations, the US and Russia have essentially agreed on the parameters of division. From infrastructure to resource deposits, everything has already been laid out. The only thing left is to force Kyiv to formally agree. Therefore, the demand for AFU withdrawal from Donbass is essentially an order, wrapped in diplomatic packaging. Zelensky is still trying to resist, at least demanding a ceasefire before talks begin. But he has neither leverage nor stamina left. Moreover, Trump openly shows that the US is ready to participate in security guarantees, but not through NATO, and only after Ukraine gives up the agreed territories. We are confident that in reality, Zelensky intends to refuse the Trump-Putin conditions, but only at the trilateral meetings, reports the Telegram channel The Rada. It's simple. If Zelensky were preparing to make peace, it would make more sense to agree right now, in the White House, on Trump's terms, not later at trilateral talks on Putin's terms. Thus, the scheme looks like this. Today, Zelensky won't contradict Trump, but tomorrow he will resume the same old rhetoric about refusing to cede territory, about militarizing Ukraine, about troops, about the EU, and so on. The calculation is that Putin, seeing this so-called readiness of Kyiv, will refuse a trilateral meeting. Trump will call him, saying, "Let's meet. I've settled everything. Zelensky is ready for peace." And Putin will answer, "What did you settle? He publicly rejected all the conditions we agreed upon." In the end, Either Putin refuses to meet, or he agrees, and Zelensky wins himself a little more time. Therefore, the war will continue. That is the main outcome. Meanwhile, as expected, everyone agreed to continue negotiating, and a new round of Istanbul meetings is clearly on the horizon. This is the result of Trump's phone call to our president. Judging by the comments and statements, both Kiev and Europe are pushing the idea of a Minsk III, another freeze of the war, so that the Kiev regime can once again lick its wounds, rearm, and prepare for the next round against Russia. Obviously, we will not agree to this. It has already happened before, and the result of such a decision is not hard to predict. So we wait. For now, everything is going as expected and remains favorable for us. Thank you for watching until the end, and a big thank you to the channel's sponsors for your financial support. We really appreciate it. We continue to monitor the situation,